to get ready, raring to go. Hello, I can see people coming into the chat now. Perfect. Here we go. Sarah, hello. Liam, how's it going? Sarcastically hopeful, how's it going? BS Paneath, hello. What time does the race start? We're about half an hour, 28 minutes by my time, outside of getting underway under the lights in Saudi Arabia. Lovely. That is live as well. Perfect. You love to see it. And we're getting some hellos in the chat. Beautiful. How are we all feeling? Are we ready and raring to go for another Formula One race? 5 races in the last 6 weeks. And I even saw Alex Albon. I watched the Williams podcast kind of thing that they do. Alex Albon was saying that it's getting to him now. It feels like they've done 15 races, I think he said. Feels like they've been on the grid for a very, very long time. So I hope it doesn't feel too bad for you guys. Certainly ready for another one. But let's see what we can do. Let me get a couple of bits loaded up in the background. Hello, MRX. Hello, ASV. Hello, Divyam. Leyland Williams, how's it going? Jim Manis, I'm thinking Max, just hope they got the pit stop straightened out. Yeah, I think that was very much a one-off thing for Red Bull last time around in Bahrain because, well, it wasn't the driver's fault or even really the team's fault. It was kind of a technical flaw that they had just with their lights. I'm sure they will have double, triple, quadruple checked that this time around because, yeah, if that happened again, somebody's getting fired, basically, inside of the Red Bull team. If that happens 2 races in a row, we'll attempt to be awake. Thank you, Kelly. Actually, Kelly, I need to say thank you again, because I did exactly what you said yesterday. You might remember we were discussing the future of Red Bull if Max Verstappen were to move away. Seems like a bit of a big if now, considering he's on pole position once again, but we were discussing it nonetheless. And I have, on the community tab, put out a post where you can get your opinion in. In fact, have I got it up on the screen? Maybe, maybe not. This one? Yeah, this one here. There you go. If you want to get involved, head over to the community tab. Hit this link on the form, and you can have your say on which drivers you think would be best for Red Bull moving forwards. I put out as many as I could think of that were sort of half reasonable to go in to replace Max Verstappen. So Kelly, absolute legend, giving me that idea. It has been put into fruition. But how is everybody else? Lisa, hoping to see Lando on the podium, starting from 10th place. It's going to be a tricky one. Should we go through that? Let's talk about the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships first, as we normally do on a race day, just to give us a little bit of background on what's happening. Of course, only 4 races completed so far this season. Incredibly tight towards the top end, as it is anyway, but a lot still to come. And definitely not championship over for really any of the drivers inside of the top 5, 6, 7, you could even say, realistically, at this point in the season. I know it would be a pretty swift 50-odd points that Lewis Hamilton would need to make up on Lando Norris, but there's still 20 races to go, so never say never. Oh, thank you for becoming a member. I missed who that was. No, go back. NWA Bufu, Nwabufo. Terrible with names. I'm really, really sorry, but thank you so much for becoming a member. That does mean we're up to 20 members on the channel, and you will be part of the post-race members-only live stream that does happen, as it kind of says in the name, post-race, where we have a little chat about everything that has gone down in Saudi Arabia. A little bit more relaxed, a little bit laid back, just kind of a bit of a wind down after the race, and we get to see the podium celebrations. Hello, Josh. How's it going? Josh, also a member. Members are fully in the chat today. But as I was saying, The top 5 or 6 you could realistically still see being in the championship at this point. However, the big thing and the talking point today will be that top end. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, 3 points between the two of them at the moment. But with Oscar starting so far forward in comparison to Lando Norris, is this the time that we're going to see that championship lead taken away from Lando Norris and put into the hands of his teammate? Could be very interesting if that does happen as well, because it just feels like the momentum is with Oscar Piastri right now, winning 2 out of the 4 races so far. Could be 3 out of 5 races come the end of this one. We know that he is really quick in Saudi Arabia, showing that in qualifying yesterday. And with Lando making a little bit of a mistake, Lando has made it very, very difficult for himself. Even Norris saying that a top 4, top 5 finish would be pretty impressive considering where he has put himself on the grid. So that battle right at the top. Max Verstappen could well take the lead of the championship as well. I know he's 5 points behind Oscar Piastri, but that would switch if Max Verstappen finishes the race first. Oscar Piastri finishes the race second. Max Verstappen would go back up to the top of the championship, somewhere that he got very comfortable. He was top of the championship for over 1,000 days, remember, in his peak between 2022 and 2024. Only losing the lead of the championship at the beginning of this season when Lando Norris won in Australia. So Max, very comfortable being at the top of the championship, could well go back to it once again. George Russell also in the mix there. A bit more of a leap for George Russell. Needs a 14-point swing on Lando Norris to get above the McLaren driver. If it's another podium, though, for George Russell, and maybe Lando Norris ends up out of the points, most certainly we could see George Russell also leap Lando Norris. And that would be the thing, right? If Lando Norris goes from being top of the championship to possibly 4th by the end of today's race, then there's going to be even more questions asked. And there's already a lot of questions asked. So it's going to be very, very tight and very, very interesting to see. Super chat. Oh, thank you, GameStar70. Max versus Piastri is like fire versus ice. He is very Iceman, isn't he, Oscar Piastri? I know that's Kimi Räikkönen. You can never take that away from Kimi Räikkönen. But if Räikkönen were to be kind of reformed, Oscar Piastri does fit that mold quite nicely, doesn't it? I think Oscar Piastri is a little bit more giving. Like Kimi Räikkönen is the most extreme that you could possibly be. But the other end of the spectrum, Max Verstappen, very fiery indeed. I like that. The fire versus ice. That is a very, very nice little thing. Sarah saying, dang. Broke up with my girlfriend because she's obsessed with some guy called Jaman Curley. Okay. Can I make you feel better? I mean, the best thing to get you to feel better is a 10 out of 10 Formula One race. And Jeddah usually delivers some pretty exciting racing. So I'm very sorry to hear that. But also, don't worry, there's a Formula One race coming, and it should make you feel much better indeed. Or at least take your mind off of it for an hour to an hour and a half, however long it takes them to complete the 50 laps of the Jeddah circuit. Moving down a little bit, Charles Leclerc moving into 5th place, 2 points ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli a little bit unfortunate not to get points in that 4th race. Be interesting to see how those two play out. Obviously starting next to one another, well, 4th and 5th, so not quite next to each other, but within the same piece of track, Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli. So that could definitely interchange as well. Charles Leclerc already, though, very disappointed with how Ferrari have started the year, but also sort of seeing himself as out of that championship battle already, which is so disappointing considering Ferrari looked to be the 2nd best car last year, you know? Ending the season, they were 2nd in the Constructors' Championship, but within touching distance of the McLaren cars. And it's so frustrating to see sort of the step back that Ferrari have made. I know that they redid their whole car, and that was their entire thing coming into this season was, well, we're going to reset the car, change it up, and really go for it in 2025. It's kind of gone the other way, hasn't it? They've redone the car, really gone for it in 2025, but by doing so, they've made the car a lot harder for the drivers to get anything from. And Charles Leclerc even yesterday said he thinks he's got the absolute maximum out of it in qualifying yesterday and was still nowhere close to those guys that are in the 3 slots ahead of him on the grid. So Charles Leclerc, got to feel sorry for him at this point. He has been so close and has been definitely like championship worthy in terms of if Ferrari can deliver him a car, he would be right up there with the best drivers and be able to get in and amongst that championship. But Ferrari have just never delivered him a car at the right time in the right way. And whenever they do deliver a car that is competitive, it's always just too late. Like last year, Monza's way too late to deliver Charles Leclerc a championship-worthy car. You know, you're over halfway through the season. They need it early, and that's just something that they haven't been able to do at Ferrari. Alex Albon still leading the best of the rest pack in 8th place. Yuki Tsunoda hoping to get himself in there eventually. You know, you're looking at that top 8, and it's definitely missing a Red Bull-style car. Alex Albon being the man so far. Carlos Sainz, though, the Williams starting in the points today. Albon then just ahead of Esteban Ocon by 4 points. Lance Stroll then another 4 points behind. Esteban Ocon has had a very quiet but very, very solid start to the season inside of that Haas car. Picking up 14 points so far. Just kind of, I wasn't really, I want to say, not really aware, but clearly I noticed Ocon was picking up those points, but he's just quietly gone about it, hasn't he? There hasn't been any big dramatic moments for Esteban Ocon where he's scored a ridiculous amount of points, but he's just kind of chipped away at it. I know that spin last time out in Bahrain for him was very, very frustrating, but he made up for it. We'll have to wait and see what comes from Esteban Ocon. A poor qualifying from him yesterday, but started the season very, very well. Pierre Gasly looks like a man reinvigorated. 6 points on the board from Bahrain, most certainly looking to add to that this weekend. Nico Hülkenberg looks like 6 points might be enough, but we're going to have to wait and see. And then Ollie Behrman in there as well, picking up that point. And that point, so crucial. Ollie Behrman putting Haas above Williams in the constructor standings with that extra point. Feels like the top 4 is pretty set at this moment in time. The only thing is, will Ferrari be able to get in front of Red Bull? Because Red Bull, at the moment anyway, being carried by one driver pretty substantially there. So it's whether or not Yuki Tsunoda can keep Red Bull afloat, but Mercedes and George Russell just look to be right there. Kimi Antonelli is slotted in very nicely indeed and is picking up more than enough points that you'd see them being fairly comfortable second place in the championship as the season progresses. Maybe that will change, but right now that top 4 is looking pretty settled in my opinion. Then we have Haas, Williams, Aston Martin, Racing Bulls. Alpine, I feel like, should be higher. It feels like Aston Martin will slowly drop down this order if I had to pick somebody. And Stake Sauber, whether or not they'll be able to get off the bottom. I really hope that Gabriel Bortoleto scores points. Like, I know that he hasn't got any points so far this season and bottom of the championship, but I really hope that Gabriel Bortoleto can pick up at least some points somewhere. Obviously, Fernando Alonso, Liam Lawson and Jack Doohan also joining him on the 0 points so far this season. So at least he's not alone in that. But crucially, I'd like to see every driver this season pick up a point because I think that's really, really good. Thoughts on Flavio Briatore? Ruthless, controversial, but to be fair to him, he's made the Alpine team a lot smoother. And Alpine look in a better position now than they did a year ago. He's finally stopped the ridiculousness of changing over team principal every 5 minutes. It feels like Ollie Oakes is finally actually going to get a chance to stick for more than a season by the looks of things. It looks like the technical staff underneath him are also fairly happy. I know it's a bit harsh on Jack Doohan that he might be replaced by Franco Colapinto, but unfortunately, Flavio Briatore is a money man. So that's the way that it goes. Technically, can Racing Bulls run the RB19? No, no, no. They are separate teams. They are they're separate teams. They can't just go and copy a car from somebody else. Although you would think that the RB team and Red Bull would work a little bit closer together, because often it does feel like they're complete. I know they are completely separate teams, but it feels like they are completely separate in terms of all factors. And therefore, when the drivers do go from the Racing Bull to the Red Bull, you'd think that they would make the Racing Bull car a little bit similar to the Red Bull car, so that once you kind of get that step up, you're at least semi used to how it drives. But we've seen already Lawson making that step up, didn't happen. Yuki Tsunoda making that step up, still struggling. Like, it's not an easy car to adapt to, even when you've been in the sister team of that car, which just seems crazy to me. Like, surely they should be using that sister team to get the drivers ready for the car that they're going into. But I've always found that really weird inside of the Red Bull team, and never really understood why the Red Bull car and the RB car aren't more aligned in terms of at least how they drive and how they're set up and how the drivers can adapt to both of those. What's going on with Ferrari and Hamilton? I think Hamilton has said it himself. He's just really not comfortable inside of that car at the moment. Had a nice, sweet start to the season. Felt like it was going quite well after Australia, then China winning that sprint race. It felt like it was starting to carry a little bit of momentum. Then the disqualification from the Chinese Grand Prix, not quite getting it right in Japan, not quite getting it right in Bahrain. It's starting to ebb on a little bit. And I think the fact that the Ferrari car has kind of been the fourth fastest, I know that you could argue Red Bull, have only had one driver in there, but I think it's quite clear to see now that the Ferrari is the fourth fastest car there. And they weren't expecting that as well. It's been frustrating. Yeah, Hamilton is in a really weird spot in terms of Ferrari. He's obviously got some kind of inkling about 2026 and beyond. So maybe 2026 it will all come good and it will look like a stroke of genius from Lewis Hamilton. We kind of said that when he moved to Mercedes, let's not forget. He had one season at Mercedes that was a little bit choppy and pretty difficult. But then after that, won championship after championship after championship. So let's not judge his entire Ferrari career on the first four races, and maybe not even on the first season, but he needs something to come good, does Lewis Hamilton, doesn't he, at some point. Let's move into the actual qualifying grid as we are 10 minutes away. Hello to all of the people joining. Thank you for choosing to watch the stream with us. Massively appreciate it. If you could hit the like button, that'd be amazing. Hit the subscribe button if you're new as well. On the way to 130,000 subscribers, and we also hit the 20 member margin. We've got 20 members. I'm trying to aim for 30 by the end of the season. We're only 5 races in and we're already 20 out of 30 there. So if you become a member, we can even extend that beyond. You get access to a members only post race show after every single Grand Prix, and more members benefits are going to be coming. You just need to give me a little bit of time as I am moving house. But once that is done, which should have been done before the season started, that's how long this delay has been, but we're getting there. Slowly but surely, we are getting there. Smiley Brandon thinks Oscar Piastri's consistency will earn him a world championship this year. I would love to see it. Not going to lie, I would absolutely love to see it. But let's look at the grid for today, because Oscar Piastri was just pipped by 100th of a second. Max Verstappen, top of the championship lead, top of the grid positions. God, I'm reading the chat. I'm reading this. Need to get my mind in it. Max Verstappen, starting from pole position, a stunning lap. As I said, 100th of a second quicker than Oscar Piastri, which around the streets here, even Oscar Piastri said it himself, is minimal. You are talking, millimeters, and you are talking getting dangerously close to the walls. I was watching an onboard of Max Verstappen through the middle sector, or sort of moving up to the middle sector, past sort of turn 5, 6, 7, and then through the middle sector. He is agonizingly close to every single wall, to the extent that it makes you sort of take an inhale of breath every single time he gets that close to the barriers. Oscar Piastri isn't too far off, but Max Verstappen really was on the absolute fringe of the limit. And that was able to earn him that 100th of a second. I think Oscar Piastri kind of just took that on the chin and was like, you know what, Max, if you want to do that, that is up to you. He wanted to make sure that he was starting towards the top end. Piastri starting just beside him. I think that's going to be a lovely little to and fro. We haven't really seen Piastri versus Verstappen for the victory. You know, we got to see Verstappen versus Norris play out quite a few times last season. And then we never really got to see the flip side of that, which was Piastri versus Verstappen in terms of going for a victory in this way. So it's a new battle, a new dynamic that we'll start to kind of get to know over the course of this season, I feel like. And this is the first step in that direction where Piastri is going to get his real opportunity to have a run at the current world champion without his teammate there as well. So oftentimes we see a little bit of sort of team radio, especially when the McLarens are there as a duo, where we know they can play off one another. Nope, this is just Piastri versus Verstappen going gung-ho at the front of the grid. And then behind that, I love the fact that the top four are all different teams. I know that that only kind of happened because Lando Norris dropped out, but I do really enjoy the fact that we've got then George Russell and Charles Leclerc starting on the second row behind. I could see George Russell winning this race, honestly. He was a little bit disappointed that he thought he could have been in contention for pole position, possibly even nabbed it had it not been for a mistake through the first sector. So hopefully we see George Russell in that mix as well. I would really love a three-way battle at the top, especially between three different constructors. Charles Leclerc seems less likely that he's going to be able to get involved, but starting from fourth place, never want to say never when it comes to Charles Leclerc starting fourth place and a possible victory. Kimi Antonelli starting in fifth place with Carlos Sainz starting in sixth. So Antonelli should be able to keep himself ahead of the Williams, but you know what? Carlos Sainz seems to be reinvigorated once again, was much quicker in Bahrain, finally seems settled inside of that Williams car, and maybe we will see the full ability of Carlos Sainz inside of that Williams car today. And if Carlos Sainz can battle with Antonelli or Leclerc, or even just keep Hamilton and Tsunoda behind, that would be an absolutely stunning race from Carlos Sainz. I have a feeling that Carlos Sainz will probably drop back a couple of positions because starting 7th and 8th place behind him, Lewis Hamilton, Yuki Tsunoda, they're going to be tricky to keep behind in the kind of top four quicker cars. And then behind that, Pierre Gasly starts in the top 10 once again. So Pierre Gasly looking for another points finish in the Alpine to back up the 6 points that he got last time around and put him up to where he really felt like he was going to be coming into this season in terms of the championship. Lando Norris, after that spin, a little mistake once again from Lando Norris, a big talking point yesterday in qualifying. That spin that brought out the red flag puts him 10th place, and it's going to be an uphill battle for Norris. You know, you can look at the couple of cars ahead. You can say, well, he probably should get ahead of Gasly, and Tsunoda's not quite there with the Red Bull car yet. So you feel like he'd be able to get past that. Maybe Hamilton as well. But as soon as you start to see sort of Sainz, Antonelli, Leclerc, Russell, I think that's going to be really tough for Lando Norris to make up any more positions than maybe 3 or 4. I think if he finishes 5th, it's a pretty good finish for Lando Norris. Anything above that is going to take either a little bit of luck playing in his favor or a very, very good drive from Lando Norris with some top overtaking maneuvers. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out for Lando. Then just outside of the points is Alex Albon and Liam Lawson actually starting 12th. Much better to see him there. It's been a really, really hard couple of races for Liam Lawson. 4 races where he's been in a Red Bull for 2 of them, an RB for 2 of them, hasn't felt anywhere near where he needs to be. But now in 12th place, maybe some points on the board by the end of this Grand Prix. Alonso and Hadjar starting in 13th and 14th place behind. Ollie Behrman in 15th place. Lance Stroll starts in 16th place. And then we're looking at the cars unlikely to get anywhere near the points unless something goes a little bit awry for those guys in front. Jack Doohan starting 17th. Nico Hulkenberg 18th. Esteban Ocon really frustratingly starting in 19th place. Usually an absolute master of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Has even led the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix as well. Gabriel Bortoleto at the back of the pack. Not applicable is ADHD. I mean, maybe. I've never been diagnosed. We'll have to see. I don't think so. I think I just like talking about Formula One, and I was trying to get it in before the start of the race because we are only a couple of minutes away. Let's move over to the slightly more detailed board for you guys. We have got the drivers on the radio already as they are getting onto the grid, drivers in the cars, and we're about a minute and a half away from the opening formation lap here in Jeddah. As I say, so many different storylines that could play out throughout this race. Of course, the tyres a step softer in terms of this year as well, so maybe we could see a little bit of a change in terms of it's normally a one stop around here, especially when there's a safety car that plays into the teams being able to just make a stop under the safety car conditions. So hopefully that won't be the case. And hopefully we'll actually see a two-stop race this time around. Because as we saw in Bahrain, that can start to shuffle around a little bit in terms of where the drivers are at particular points in the race. Like we saw Ferrari have an incredible middle stint in Bahrain. Maybe we'll see that once again. We'll see someone come onto the medium tyre or someone come onto the hard tyre and just really click into gear. It does look like the medium tyre is the choice for the majority. Interesting that Lando Norris, the only driver inside of the top 10 who is starting on the hard compound tyre. So possibly going to see the McLaren go that little bit longer in the first stint. Will the undercut play against him? We'll have to wait and see. Fernando Alonso also starting on a slightly scrubbed set of medium tyres. The reason that sometimes teams do that, they'll scrub a set of tyres during free practice because it just kind of takes that sheen off of them. If you see the tyres on the cars fresh when they're just gone onto the car, they have this kind of layer that's very slick and it's very, very shiny. What the cars will do and what the teams will sometimes do is just do one lap on those tires during free practice just to take that little bit of the shine off of the tires. That layer that the tires have right at the top actually makes the tires a little bit more durable sometimes because you get a heat cycle through the tires. So Fernando Alonso, even though he started on the medium tire there, I would expect him to go a little bit longer in that first stint. Hadjar starting on the hard tyre, Stroll starting on a scrubbed set of hards, so they could go even longer. And then Nico Hulkenberg also starting on the hard compound tyre. Wouldn't surprise me if we do see some soft compound tyres during the race here as well. I know a lot of teams manage to keep a set of soft compound tyres, especially even the top teams with those with that red flag coming out. They kind of have a slightly scrubbed set of softs or a fresh set of softs that they actually can keep in the bank for this Grand Prix. So maybe we'll see some soft compound tyres as well. It's going to be a real mix of strategies, I'm hoping, inside of this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And as I say, I'm hoping for a two-stop due to the tyres being that one set softer than we have regularly seen in the streets of Saudi Arabia. If you are new to the channel, if you could hit that like button, that'd be absolutely amazing. If you could subscribe to the channel also, I would be indebted to you. And we're going to get underway then on the formation lap, and we'll start to get set up for that. Let me just move a couple of bits around. And we are on the formation lap here then. Piastri just behind Max Verstappen already, looking at the rear end of Max Verstappen's car. Lando Norris just making his way down towards turn one. In fact, I think the multi-viewer is a touch behind. So I'm just going to apply that and reset that. So it might just freeze for a minute or so, but hopefully it'll only freeze during the formation lap. So just give me 30 seconds and that will catch up with itself. So it will be frozen. People are going to say it in the chat. It's frozen. I know. Just resetting it because it was a little bit behind. But it should be ready for the formation lap. Verstappen ahead of Piastri to begin with. Then George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Antonelli, Sainz, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Gasly, and Norris starting inside of the points. Don't switch your channels. We are just about to get underway. And as we've just seen, a safety car has been deployed at every single Saudi Arabian Grand Prix that we've had. Started in 2021, of course, one of the most dramatic Grand Prix to get it underway. It was the penultimate race in that 2021 season, the Verstappen versus Hamilton battle at its absolute peak. And then since then, we have also started to see some incredible races, always dictated by safety cars. Can I swap the position of the radio messages with the chat messages? I could do. Not right at this moment. I always kind of swap things around, to be honest. It's not going to be like this for the entire season. You'll kind of see. I changed my mind on a few things here and there as we go. I'm always trying to improve. Just trying to make it a little bit better every single time around. No investigations or penalties as of yet, but there might be some incoming. If you could hit the like just before we get underway, that would be absolutely amazing. Maybe subscribe to the channel if you are new. And Max Verstappen has taken his spot at the front of the grid. He knows that he's going to have to defend from Oscar Piastri down towards turn one. Of course, no DRS on the first lap of the race, but the DRS round here is pretty slick. And we will definitely see some overtaking, hopefully, from that man there, Lando Norris, starting in 10th place, just following the rear end of Pierre Gasly's car. No spins either, looking at you, Stroll. Here we are then. Once Gabriel Bortoleto takes his spot, we will get underway. In fact, now I think the multi-viewer is even ahead of me. Medical car pulls into place. And we are going to get underway then. 50 laps of the Jeddah circuit to come. Green flag is waved. 5 red lights are lit. And here we go then. Down towards turn one. Oscar Piastri has the inside. He's going to make the move straight away on Max Verstappen. He's going to get it as well. Piastri tries his best and Verstappen goes off the runoff area. And Verstappen keeps the lead of the race by running wide. Behind that, we've also got Charles Leclerc and Antonelli side by side. Gasly is battling with Tsunoda and I think has got the better of his old teammate. Lando Norris. Oh, and it's a big shunt. Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly have come into contact, and Tsunoda and Gasly, surely that is going to cause a safety car already. Gasly and Tsunoda coming to blows. Verstappen keeping the lead. Oh my goodness. And that is a big shunt between Tsunoda and Gasly, two very good friends on the Formula One grid. They will not be happy with one another after this one. And Yuki Tsunoda, oh no, oh, I'm so sorry, Super Chat. What do you think of Yuki's chances? It's over before it started for Yuki Tsunoda at this point. Tsunoda now, safety car is deployed. And the safety car then meaning everybody is going to have to slow back down and come back around. In fact, I'm going to take the opportunity to reset a couple of things. So apologies, but it's going to just quickly freeze once again for about 30 seconds. And Tsunoda, oh, just clips. And I think Tsunoda might be slightly to blame there. Coming around turn one. Yeah, I think Tsunoda. I think it's a bit of a racing incident. Maybe slightly more Tsunoda's fault than Gasly's, if I'm brutally honest, because Gasly can't really see what's going on behind him at that point. And we'll wait and see. Oh, Tsunoda is possibly moving. Gasly is completely out of it. Yuki Tsunoda, though, has got his car up and running once again. It's just coming through turn 24. So Tsunoda might still be in this race. But the safety car just catching the front runners now. And there's a safety vehicle on the track there. And Piastri making the thought that I actually thought as well, Piastri, where he was ahead was Oscar Piastri. So why wasn't that position given back to him? Seems like like Oscar Piastri kind of had that position ahead of Max Verstappen, but Max Verstappen still leading the Grand Prix right now. We'll have to wait and see what the stewards say, whether or not Max Verstappen does have to give that position back to his teammate. Yeah, it is frozen for some reason. It's frozen under the safety car. It's not a me thing. I'm looking across. It's just frozen completely. It will come back, though, and we're still under safety car conditions. I've reset it, so give it 10 more seconds, maybe 20, and it will be back. Yuki's car condition. He's back in the pits. Changed the tyres on that car. They're just having a little look. And I don't know. It was a pretty big shunt. Like you can see the fact that Pierre Gasly spun around the rear end of the car. And Max Verstappen versus Oscar Piastri has been noted and is under investigation. So the stewards are now looking at that Oscar Piastri versus Max Verstappen down in towards turn 1. George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Kimi Antonelli, Lewis Hamilton managed to get through. Hamilton actually got the jump on Carlos Sainz. So Sainz down to 7th place. Lando Norris inheriting 8th place because he saw Gasly and Tsunoda spin around in front of him. And Gasly, they were just caught nowhere, really. Gasly had nowhere to run. Tries to get back onto the circuit. Tsunoda's there as well. Tsunoda just clips the rear end of Pierre Gasly's car. Unfortunately, Gasly does come off worse. And Yuki Tsunoda was able to get back into the pits, but Tsunoda hasn't come back out of the pits yet. So I'm not sure that Tsunoda will continue to take part. Would be a couple of laps down anyway with Yuki Tsunoda at this point because the safety car just coming past the start-finish line once again. So Tsunoda would be slightly behind, well, a considerable amount behind the rest of the field. And yeah, does look at that. Looking at the Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen again. Piastri does get to the corner first. Let's see what the investigation is saying. Turn 1 incident. They are now looking at it. It's now being investigated. It's gone from 1 to 2. So the stewards are literally looking at it right now. Will they make Max Verstappen give that position to Oscar Piastri and put Piastri into the lead of the race? Yuki Tsunoda still in the pits. And it looks like Yuki Tsunoda is going to be out of this one, to be honest. They are wheeling that car into the garage. And yeah, Yuki Tsunoda is now out of the race. So Tsunoda and Gasly drop out of the top 10. Lando Norris jumps up into 8th place. Albon and Alonso have also managed to jump up into the point scoring places. Liam Lawson, with a pretty nightmare start, dropped back behind his teammate into 12th spot. That's actually where he started, but unfortunately for him, he should really be up behind Alex Albon had the start gone a little bit better for him. Ollie Behrman in 13th place. Esteban Ocon, Jack Doohan, Gabriel Bortoletto, Nico Hulkenberg still running around at the back of the pack. Let's see then. It is still under investigation. I'm keeping an eye on it. Feels like they should give that position back, but haven't been told to do so. Oh! And Piastri talking on the radio about it. We're starting to see, and this is what I said beforehand, that we haven't seen this kind of battle for Piastri before. We haven't seen Piastri versus Verstappen in this way. where it is for the lead of a Grand Prix, where there isn't Lando Norris involved either, and it's just those two battling it out for the lead. Safety car is ending. You can see it coming into the pit lane now. Max Verstappen still leads, and that is still under investigation. So does Oscar Piastri just not bother waiting for the stewards to make a decision and instead go for it all by himself down towards turn one? Let's keep an eye on it. Max Verstappen backing up the pack as we come towards turn 27. George Russell peels to the inside of Piastri. It's going to be very tight indeed. George Russell is thinking about a run at Oscar Piastri as it is. Max Verstappen has launched and actually left Piastri in a little bit of a problem here because Piastri is going to be in the defensive maneuver rather than... Oh, and there is the confirmation, a 5-second penalty for Max Verstappen. But let's keep an eye on this as we go down towards turn one. George Russell has a little look, but isn't able to get past. Oscar Piastri continues in second place, but with Max Verstappen having a 5-second penalty. Leclerc, Antonelli, Hamilton, Sainz, Norris, Albon, Alonso all lead one by one through turn one and turn two. So no change of position as we've run down towards turn one after that safety car. Let's see how this goes then. Will Piastri just try and keep himself within 5 seconds and wait for the pit stops? So Max Verstappen with a 5-second penalty. The investigation between Gasly and Tsunoda for causing a collision is also starting to get looked at by the stewards, but that won't play in any kind of way because Tsunoda and Gasly now both out of this race. Piastri versus Russell still playing out for third. Russell has dropped a little bit off the back of him, though, keeping an eye on Charles Leclerc behind. Antonelli still fifth. And we're starting to see the drivers just eke out a little bit of space after that safety car, trying to get themselves out of the dirty air of the car in front, get those tyres into working condition, knowing that now it's looking like a one-stop strategy, actually, for the majority of the cars out there. I feel like with the safety car in particular. And here comes Isaac Hadjar going for a move on Fernando Alonso and gets the move done. Isaac Hadjar moves up into the point-scoring places on the hard compound tyre as well versus the mediums of Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso looking to come back at him down towards turn one, but not able to do it this time around. Max Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the race with a 1:33.8. But Isaac Hadjar in the sister Red Bull has moved up into the point scoring places. So Isaac Hadjar, once again, the second fastest Red Bull car on the grid. And although Yuki Tsunoda is out of the race, there's still another little eye-opener, isn't it? Isaac Hadjar seems to be able to be that man more often than not. That is second quickest to Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen has got to try and get his way out of that range of Oscar Piastri. And Verstappen is just being told over the radio that he's been given a time penalty. And Verstappen, not very happy about it, as you could imagine. But a 5-second penalty given for that nonetheless. I mean, he did run out of space, but also Oscar Piastri was ahead at the apex. And I think Max Verstappen kind of knew that Piastri had the inside line going into it. Piastri then starting to close that gap to within a second, knowing that DRS is now enabled once again. And we're seeing Lando Norris now battling with his old teammate. Lando Norris still in a McLaren, of course. Carlos Sainz, though, moved to Ferrari, now in a Williams, and is going to be under pressure from Lando Norris. Norris having a little look up the inside of Carlos Sainz, but not this time around, as he starts to make his way up towards where he should really be. Oscar Piastri now sets the fastest lap of the race behind Verstappen. Still not quite within a second, though, of the race leader. Verstappen with a 5-second penalty, as you can see there on the investigations board. And Tsunoda and Gasly out of the race. But Verstappen has still maintained more than a second gap to Oscar Piastri behind. DRS is going to be crucial here, as Lando Norris is finding out behind Carlos Sainz. Antonelli also within DRS range of Charles Leclerc. The young Italian now fighting with the Italian team. Let's see what comes out on top. Charles Leclerc under pressure from the rookie. Lando Norris closing in once again to the back of Carlos Sainz. Coming up towards turn 27 now. Will Lando Norris have a look there, or maybe down towards turn 1? Let's keep an eye on it. Max Verstappen comes across the line to start lap 7 of this race. Oscar Piastri just about gets within 1 second, but can't keep himself within that DRS range consistently. And here comes Lando Norris on Carlos Sainz, decides to do it down towards turn 1 and gets the move done. Down towards turn 1, Lando Norris now up into 7th place and a couple of seconds adrift of Lewis Hamilton in 6th, who is the next target for the McLaren man. Started 10th, now running 7th. Inherited a couple of positions nicely from Tsunoda and Gasly spinning ahead of him, and now has made his first maneuver to get past Carlos Sainz up into 7th. Carlos Sainz will be a little bit frustrated that he's already been overtaken by Hamilton and Norris, but Sainz now leading the rest of the pack. And Sainz knowing that realistically the Williams not quite up to the task of the top 4 teams ahead of him. Verstappen still leads, Piastri second, Russell on the podium as he has been so consistently throughout this season. George Russell, Charles Leclerc 4th, Antonelli 5th, Hamilton 6th. They are the drivers ahead now of Lando Norris. And let's see what Lando Norris's pace is like with a couple of seconds to run into. Isaac Hadjar still the driver, just about in the point scoring places in 10th. Both of the Williamses ahead of him though. And Fernando Alonso, the closest competitor behind, although Isaac Hadjar did overtake Fernando Alonso a couple of laps ago. Verstappen starts lap 8 of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Nobody did swap under the safety car in the top teams, but you got to be thinking Jack Doohan, Ocon, Bortoletto, they all decided to pit under the safety car conditions, so keep an eye on their pace at the back of the pack because they're going to be going insanely long on those hard tires. Do they think they can get towards the end of the race? Maybe have to be very, very controlled drive from Doohan, Ocon and Bortoletto if they're going to get all the way to the end on those hard tires. But keep an eye on that in 16th, 17th and 18th place because they are now at the back of the pack. Oscar Piastri. Oh no, I thought it was under investigation, but that's from before. The Gasly-Tsunoda incident is going to be looked at after the Grand Prix. Makes sense. Neither of them in the Grand Prix anymore, so it's not going to be massively impactful on the drivers right now. Piastri maybe just minding his tyres a touch because knowing that Max Verstappen has that 5-second penalty, doesn't need to go for anything crazy, does Piastri, keeping himself just over a second behind, so outside of that DRS range, but maybe just keeping his tyres on the nicer side of things and allowing Piastri to just be thinking about the pit stops and how he can get the better of Verstappen come those pit stops when Verstappen is going to take at least 5 seconds longer in the pit stops. Because we know that he's got that 5-second penalty and will have to serve it at his first pit stop. Of course, though, will be continuing to fight. And that's the thing with Verstappen. He knows that now, even though he's got that 5-second penalty, he'll take that rather than giving the position to Piastri because he's in the clean air, can keep those tyres going a little bit longer. And this is where the strategy really plays out, doesn't it? Verstappen can kind of keep his tyres that little bit nicer. Oh, and a track limit strike in turn 2. So... and Max Verstappen complaining about that also. So the stewards and Max Verstappen not seeing eye to eye at the moment in any possible way. GP will get on that for Max Verstappen, I'm sure. And there is Pierre Gasly actually out of the car already. Max Verstappen saying in the driver's briefing that they weren't going to count those kind of things as track limits infringements, but they have nonetheless. Oscar Piastri does actually close that gap in. Maybe Piastri deciding, you know what, even though you got this 5-second penalty, I actually want to take the lead of this Grand Prix because I think I've got the better chance of winning it if I can keep my tyres a little bit fresher than yours. Looking at the replay there of that maneuver down towards turn 1. Piastri does go a little bit wide, but carries the speed through turn 1, makes the apex at turn 2, and that's the argument that the stewards will make. They'll say, look, Piastri got to that apex first and that apex first, so surely should have gained the position on track. Max decided to go across the runoff area and maintained the lead of the Grand Prix. George Russell then had to slot in just behind. I thought George Russell was going to have a little run at Oscar Piastri at that point, but Piastri managing to play it a little bit sneakily up the inside, and Russell then had to just settle for third. Has slotted into third nicely, 2.7 seconds adrift of the top two, but also 2.5 seconds ahead of Leclerc. Kimi Antonelli has dropped outside of DRS range of Charles Leclerc as well. Lewis Hamilton, no DRS. In fact, I think the first driver within DRS range of the car ahead is Fernando Alonso down in 11th place. Liam Lawson in 12th has just dropped out of DRS range as I was about to say it. So starting to see how that will play out. Everybody doing a little bit of tire management now. And Albon saying that Alex Albon being told to leave maybe a little bit more of a gap to the car in front, that being his teammate Carlos Sainz, but Albon quite rightly pointing out that Isaac Hadjar is also just over a second behind, and if Hadjar gets within DRS range, can maybe start to use that DRS advantage to close in on the two Williamses anyway. So there's a real back and forth at the moment between Sainz, Albon and Hadjar as to who might blink first in terms of the strategy. Hadjar going longer on the hard compound tyres in this first stint, will then be on the fresher, medium, quicker tyre in the second stint of the race. So Williams need to keep a little eye on that to not open the door to the RB driver. Sainz and Albon would put Williams back into 5th place in the Constructors' Championship if it were to finish like this as well. So they'll all be thinking about what's playing out in front of them and worrying about that as it goes. We can have a little look at the championship as it would be if I had loaded it beforehand, which I hadn't. Let me quickly find it. There we go. So we can see how the championship would play out at the moment. It would be Verstappen leading the Drivers' Championship once again, believe it or not. Oscar Piastri would still be in 2nd place. Lando Norris would drop to 3rd in the Drivers' standings. But you can see Williams would also jump up to 5th place in the Constructors. Hadjar and Sainz would also move up in the Drivers' standings as it plays out at the moment, but still a long way to go. And Verstappen with a 5-second penalty that will put him behind Oscar Piastri at least, and possibly even behind George Russell at this point. So that would mean Piastri would then take the lead of the driver standings if it were to play out like this. Antonio, hello, mate. How's it going? Mr. Safety Car and a 5-second penalty? Indeed. It's a pretty crazy opening sort of first few corners. Some spins, some battles, and everyone's just settled in a little bit. I think with the tyres being that step softer this time around, the drivers knowing that they need to just play it a little bit by ear. Lando Norris then having a little look at Lewis Hamilton in the final corner, and Lando Norris has very quietly just closed into the back of the Ferrari and then taken 6th place from Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton's going to have a run at Lando Norris towards turn 1, though, to get back at him. And actually, Lewis Hamilton is going to make a very nice move around the outside of turn 1 to get that position back. Hamilton drops behind Lando Norris just for 1 corner then, and back up into 6th place once again. So Norris is going to have to do it all over again. Oscar Piastri still within a second of Max Verstappen at the front. Russell, Leclerc, Antonelli in the top 5. Hamilton back up into 6th place. As I say, though, under pressure still from Lando Norris. Is Lando Norris going to try it at a different part of the track then this time around? Maybe down towards turn 22 rather than 27? Or is he going to leave it all the way down towards turn 1? It's going to play out. Lewis Hamilton still ahead, going through this middle sector towards the final sector of the track. DRS is going to be open for Lando Norris. Is he going to have a little look down towards turn 22? Not this time around. Decides against it. Maybe down towards turn 27 again. Although Lewis Hamilton was able to get past down towards turn 1 last lap. Let's see then. DRS open for Lando Norris. Decides to dart up the inside, and he goes for it at turn 27 again, does Lando Norris. Deciding that this time he's hopefully going to be able to get the better of Hamilton down towards turn 1. Hamilton once again with DRS is going to try and come back at Lando Norris, and that straight line speed of the Ferrari down towards turn 1 just means that he can very, very nonchalantly take 6th place back from Lando Norris. And Norris is going to have to change his mind, it feels like, this time around. Surely has to try and get past Lewis Hamilton down towards turn 1 rather than turn 27, because Hamilton is fairly comfortably able to follow Lando Norris through the final corner once he's lost that position, then open the DRS, carry enough speed down towards turn 1, and pretty comfortably get past Norris. Like, Hamilton peels over to the right-hand side of the track and is ahead of Lando Norris way before the braking zone. Lando Norris with no answer to Lewis Hamilton once again into turn 1. And the problem is Norris is now 15 seconds adrift, and this battle with Lewis Hamilton is not helping either of them. You can see they're in the 135s. Antonelli ahead at 134.7. And Lando Norris now saying, engineer now saying strat 8, play the game. So Lando Norris is going to follow Lewis Hamilton through the final corner this time around. And it's going to be the McLaren on the attack down towards turn 1. Peels to the outside as Lando Norris. Norris with the DRS wide open. And this time around gets the move done. And Norris up into 6th place. And is at least going to have it for more than one straight this time around. As Hamilton then drops behind. You have to say, though, Lando Norris could have done that maybe a couple of laps ago and would have played out very differently indeed. So some time to be made up with Lando Norris. Lando Norris on the hard compound tyre, of course, so he's going to pit later than the rest. A little bit of time now to Antonelli ahead. 3 seconds the gap, so has a touch of clean air to run into Lando Norris. Let's see what kind of pace this McLaren has when you really can put your foot down. Little replay of Liam Lawson, who is having a go at Fernando Alonso and has been able to, with DRS, pretty comfortably get ahead of the 2-time world champion down towards turn 1. So Liam Lawson now up into 11th place. And it is the Williamses and the RBs that are battling it out for best of the rest in Saudi Arabia. Alonso, Behrman, Stroll, Hulkenberg, Doohan, Ocon and Bortoletto still running. And then Tsunoda and Gasly both out of the race after that crash on turn 1. So Tsunoda and Gasly no longer taking part. Max Verstappen still leads, that 5-second penalty looming over him, though, as we can see on the investigations board. Has managed to get with outside of 5 seconds to George Russell. Russell 5.7 seconds off the lead. So even if Verstappen does pit and serve that penalty, Russell pits at a similar kind of time, should hopefully still come out in front of George Russell, as long as Red Bull don't have a disaster with their pit stops like they had last time around in Bahrain. Hamilton on the radio. Really struggling with the rear tires, sliding around inside of that Red Bull, inside of the Ferrari car. And Hamilton has lost the back of Lando Norris now. Norris 2 seconds ahead of Lewis Hamilton, closing in on Kimi Antonelli. A 134.1 from Lando Norris is matching the kind of lap times his teammate is doing and is quicker than Antonelli, Leclerc and Russell ahead. So Norris showing that McLaren car does have the pace to be right at the top end. Norris needs to go absolutely hell for leather here and hope that he can overcut with those hard compound tyres compared to the rest of the grid. Imagine a 4-second Red Bull pit stop again. That would be an absolute disaster. Verstappen really wants to come out still ahead of Russell. That's the thing here. Or like once Russell pits, still ahead of Russell, even with that 5-second penalty. That's why he's sort of stuck with the track position, if you will, because he knows that he's in the cleanest air possible. He can go that bit further on these mediums than Russell can, has a little bit more in these mediums than Russell does, and that's why he's there. Oscar Piastri, and on board with him. Little mistake from Oscar, possibly. Oh, yes. Oscar Piastri gets onto the curbs, where we saw Lando Norris drop it in the McLaren yesterday when he got too far over the curbs. The sparks fly from underneath Oscar Piastri's car. And that's why Piastri has just dropped a touch further behind Verstappen than he has been so far. Piastri now 2.5 seconds adrift. Should start to see the pit stops coming towards the medium runners now. I was expecting the pits to be around lap 20, especially with the safety car in play. So we're now looking at those gaps. Where would Max Verstappen come out? 20-second pit stop in and around Hamilton and Sainz. That's the issue. Needs to wait until there's a nice gap to come out into. That's the problem. See, if Piastri pitted now, for instance, he'd come out right on top of Carlos Sainz, and that's just not where you want to be, stuck between the Williamses. So they need to go that little bit longer. Lando Norris going very quick indeed, a 133.9. Just looking at his last lap timers, now within 1.3 seconds of Kimi Antonelli ahead. Antonelli doing very well inside of that Mercedes car. Haven't said much about the rookie so far this race. Been quietly getting on with it, but has started to just fall off a little bit. Antonelli 4.5 seconds adrift of Charles Leclerc ahead of him, and is now falling into the clutches of Lando Norris. Norris now wanting more from this. Knows that those points are available to him and knows that every single point is going to be very crucial in the championship standings. Verstappen still leads though, and George Russell on the radio says that his tyres are toast. So George Russell now struggling even more than he was before. 7 seconds, nearly 8 seconds really, George Russell off the lead of this race. How do we play it then? Where would you pit if you were one of these drivers? If you're George Russell, do you go early? Do you try and use those second set of tyres for a longer stint towards the end of the race? Try and get the undercut on the cars in front, especially knowing that Verstappen has a 5-second penalty? Or do you try and long it out, knowing that the longer you go and the harder this stint is, the easier the next stint will be? It's a very tough little decision. I think Russell is right in that middle pack where it's not quite 100% certain which way around you want to do it. Here comes Lando Norris on Antonelli, though, as we're playing around with the strategic maneuvers at the front. Lando Norris deciding to get it done out on track. Norris moves up in front of Kimi Antonelli. 18 laps completed on those hard compound tyres and still running very hot indeed. Here comes Ollie Bearman into the pits then. And Oscar Piastri gets the call, box, but has not. Oscar Piastri still running around down towards turn 16, 17 on our screens there. So is Piastri going to box at the end of this lap? Ollie Bearman, that's a pretty slow stop in the Haas. 4.4 seconds. It's usually around 20 seconds for a pit stop, but Ollie Bearman, 22 seconds he spent in the pit lane there. And Bearman onto the hard compound tyre. Red Bull coming out. And Verstappen being told on the radio, you know what? Maybe not the best time. Still pulling away from the cars behind. Max Verstappen certainly going longer. Piastri does come in. Piastri does decide to come in now. So McLaren going early. Lap 20 of this race. And Piastri darting into the pits. Hard compound tyres on. It's not the best stop in the world. It's a 3.4 second stop for Oscar Piastri. Of course, Max Verstappen is going to have that 5-second penalty anyway. Kimi Antonelli actually followed him into the pits. Lewis Hamilton makes his way past, which means, yeah, he's going to come out just ahead of Carlos Sainz. That was a little bit better than I was expecting. Managed to just about eke out that stop. So Piastri does come out in front of the Williamses, which was key to getting that stop done. Fernando Alonso also coming into the pits now. Kimi Antonelli comes out in a nice little bit of space, actually. Antonelli behind Liam Lawson, but has a 5-second gap to Lawson in front. So a little bit of space to get those tyres warmed up and a little bit of space to start to gallop into inside of that Mercedes car. It's going to be a fairly long 30-lap stint, though, on those tyres for Kimi Antonelli, who has said before that getting to grips with Formula One tyres is probably the thing that is most difficult, or the thing that he's finding most difficult about his rookie season in Formula One. So Piastri then comes in and out. 6th place for him. Antonelli in and out in 11th place. Let's see if anybody else blinks at the top of the grid. No, Max Verstappen stays out once again. Does George Russell decide to come in as of yet? No, also. Oh, no, sorry, Russell is in. Russell is in. It was Leclerc that stayed out. Russell goes into the pits then for the Mercedes team. A set of hard compound tyres is ready for him. Let's see where Russell is going to come out. Still wants to come out. Again, ahead of Carlos Sainz would be perfect for Russell here. I think that's the window that they're aiming for, but there goes Carlos Sainz. And Alex Albon is also coming around turn 1. So I think Russell is going to have to settle between the two Williams cars. So not exactly perfect to where he would want to be. But nonetheless, Carlos Sainz is going to have to pit at some point. So Russell, maybe not the worst stop ever. Liam Lawson has decided to come in for the RB team. So Lawson now dropping backwards too. Esteban Ocon is starting to make his way past a few cars as they pit in front of him. Here we go then. Everything you have, Max Verstappen. He is told on the radio, so surely Max is coming in fairly soon. Oscar Piastri, by the way, has already caught up to the back of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton has already been outsmarted by Lando Norris in this race. Lando Norris taking... Oh my goodness me, and Oscar Piastri goes for the move. And that is not a place where you usually see overtakes gone for, but Piastri, a stunning run down towards turn 22, gets alongside Lewis Hamilton with the DRS wide open, and Piastri up into 4th place ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton, though, is going to have DRS down towards turn 27 and also down towards turn 1. I think Hamilton having a look at Piastri once again. Piastri, though, slams the door on Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen is into the pits. New race leader is Charles Leclerc. But Piastri and Hamilton are battling down towards turn 1 as we see the Red Bull of Max Verstappen in the background. And Piastri is going to get out ahead of Max Verstappen comfortably. Piastri now into 3rd place, but effectively running first as he's only 10 seconds off the lead, and both Leclerc and Norris have yet to have pitted. Piastri then 7 seconds behind his teammate. A lovely little gap to run into, and it is looking perfect now if you're an Oscar Piastri fan. Piastri running in third, fastest lap for him of the race so far, and it was just such a ballsy move from Oscar Piastri. He didn't want to wait, wanted to absolutely guarantee that he got out in front of Max Verstappen in the pit stops, and did it with an absolutely plum overtake on Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton tried to come back at him down towards turn 27, but Piastri just making sure that that position was confirmed, and then Piastri up into third place. Hamilton yet to have pitted, running fourth. Verstappen just behind in fifth. See what Verstappen's pace is like on those hard compound tyres. Charles Leclerc yet to have pitted, is still running out there in first place. It's a 133.6 from Leclerc, 133.6 from Norris behind as well. What kind of pace has Piastri got in his first run in clean air? Not too bad at all from Piastri as well. Russell with a 133.6. We're starting to see the lap times coming in, and improvements nonetheless. George Russell saying, consider plan B. Let's see how the tyres go. Alex Albon has come into the pits for the Williams team. We're starting to see a little bit of a mix around in terms of the running order, especially towards that middle of the pack, as some drivers have pitted and some drivers haven't. Of course, Ocon and Doohan pitted under the safety car on turn 1, so they've already run 21 laps on those hard compound tyres of Ocon and Doohan. Decided to pit very early indeed. Will they pit again, or are they going to try and go all the way to the end on those tyres? Have to wait and see. Max Verstappen now right up behind the rear wing of Lewis Hamilton. We've seen these two go toe-to-toe in Saudi Arabia before, but Max Verstappen in a much, much quicker Red Bull car than the Ferrari this weekend, and also on a fresh set of hard compound tyres. Lewis Hamilton, though, surely won't want to make this easy for his old championship rival. Hamilton box in this lap, so isn't going to be worried too much about Max Verstappen. Going all the way around the outside of turn 27 goes the Dutchman and gets that move done. Verstappen moves ahead of Hamilton as Hamilton then peels into the pits just behind the 4-time world champion. Charles Leclerc still leads. Lando Norris on the hard compound tyre has also gone very long, but we're starting to see Piastri put his foot on the pedal now. 133.1 from Piastri, 0.4 of a second quicker than his teammate on that last lap, and 0.7 of a second quicker than Charles Leclerc. Still 10 seconds off the lead of this race, Piastri, but with a pit stop in hand. Verstappen fourth, Russell fifth, has pitted as well. Hadjar is slightly out of position, was started on the hard compound tyre, did Isaac Hadjar, running in sixth place at the moment. Antonelli is still ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Stroll yet to have pitted, Hülkenberg yet to have pitted. Esteban Ocon, though, in that 11th place spot, but Ocon ahead of Carlos Sainz, who is on a fresh set of hards and has dispatched Jack Doohan. So Sainz looking to get back into that best of the rest position that he's been running in for the majority of this race. Alex Albon, his teammate, was also running comfortably inside of the points. He's in 14th at the moment. We're seeing, though, that overtake from Alex Albon and Gabriel Bortoleto. They were side by side down towards turn 1. Carlos Sainz also made short work of Jack Doohan towards turn 1 last lap also. Have a little look at Liam Lawson's pace. He's gaining on the back of Gabriel Bortoleto. Fernando Alonso also in the mix there. Ollie Bearman is having a little bit of a weird time inside of that Haas car this weekend. Now dropped down to 18th place and 2.5 seconds off the back of Fernando Alonso in this little pack that we're watching now, as Liam Lawson has a little look at Gabriel Bortoleto, the current Formula 2 champion in the Stake Sauber car ahead of him. DRS will be wide open surely down towards turn one. Gabriel Bortoleto on the older tyres doesn't really have much to battle with Liam Lawson here. Lawson peels to the outside, decides to go, oh, and Gabriel Bortoleto touches with Fernando Alonso. Alonso and Bortoleto touch wheels. Fernando Alonso, his manager, of course, and Alonso gives the position back to Bortoleto, having gained it whilst off the track. Goodness me, that was very close indeed. I don't think Bortoleto realised that there was two cars both coming at him, and that was a very, very close to Fernando Alonso being squished into the wall there in his Aston Martin, but Bortoleto still ahead now. Alonso surely is going to get past him this time. See a little replay of that. Liam Lawson gets in front of Bortoleto fairly comfortably. I think, yeah, Bortoleto, I don't know if he realizes. And Bortoleto does indeed move under braking. I think Bortoleto just had all eyes on Liam Lawson. Tried to close the gap also on Fernando Alonso, but closed the gap in not the nicest of ways. And yeah, Fernando Alonso gave that position back, but I think the way he gained that position wasn't too far. I mean, he gained it whilst off the track, which is why he's given the position back, but Bortoleto could have easily been told off for that either way. Here comes Carlos Sainz starting to make a move on Ocon and gets past him. Fernando Alonso now does get past Gabriel Bortoleto. That'll be an interesting meeting between the two of them. Of course, Fernando Alonso is Bortoleto's manager. So we'll see how those two discuss that after the race. Why is Tsunoda out? He made contact with Pierre Gasly on the opening lap of the Grand Prix, and that sent both of them into a spin. Gasly was out there and then. Tsunoda did nurse his car back to the pits, but Red Bull didn't really think it was worth continuing with the car in the state that it was in. Charles Leclerc still leading and still going on those medium compound tyres. Fernando Alonso and Bortoleto both under investigation, by the way, for that little bit of contact down towards turn one. We do have that 5-second penalty for Verstappen, but he has now served that 5-second penalty during the pit stop. So Verstappen versus Piastri still looks like the battle for the lead here. Charles Leclerc at the front of the pack nonetheless on the medium tyre. 26 laps completed, but you can see the lap time's just not quite there compared to Piastri and Verstappen. Piastri now into the 132s and closing in on the lead of this race. Slowly but surely, knowing that as soon as Leclerc or Norris pit, he's going to be back into the lead. And Gabriel Bortoleto now under pressure from Ollie Behrman as well. It's going from bad to worse for the Brazilian, and Bortoleto going backwards. Lawson and Alonso, and now Behrman, 3 laps in a row. Bortoleto has lost 3 positions. So now looking at Lawson, Alonso and Behrman in 15th, 16th and 17th. Bortoleto back to the bottom of the grid. Chances of Charles Leclerc winning, he would need something pretty spectacular to go his way, to be honest. He's going very long on this strategy. I commend it. But if you look at where he will be, if he pitted right now, he would still come out behind George Russell. It's about a 20-second pit stop here in Saudi Arabia. Maybe sometimes slightly less. So 19, 20 seconds. I usually say 20, though. And therefore, that would put Leclerc just behind George Russell. George Russell 16.3 seconds off the lead of the Grand Prix. So Leclerc effectively running 5th. Lando Norris effectively still running 6th in this one. But Norris, the hard compound tyre, so we'll be onto the racier medium tyre towards the end. So Norris, one to watch once that pit stop does happen. You'd assume that they're probably getting towards the end of those hard compound tyre stints. So you're looking at Norris and Hadjar, Stroll, Hulkenberg. Likely will want to come into the pits sooner rather than later. Liam Lawson now making a move once again. Jack Doohan having a little battle with him, and Lawson getting the better of it. Lawson up into 14th spot. Carlos Sainz has also moved back past Nico Hülkenberg. So Sainz back up into the point scoring places. Lance Stroll ahead of him, yet to pit. Isaac Hadjar also yet to pit as well. Although Isaac Hadjar, he had that 20 seconds, he'd be right on top of Carlos Sainz. So Hadjar doing a great job in that RB car. Would actually come out ahead of Alex Albon at this point. So would gain a position, Isaac Hadjar, on where he was before the pit stops. And Lando Norris, a 133.3 last time around. Piastri, a 132.8. As they just come down towards turn 1 and turn 2. Verstappen also a 132.9. So Piastri and Verstappen still setting the standard here. 29 laps completed. Well, on to lap 29, so 22 laps to go. Has Piastri pitted? Yes, indeed he has. So has Verstappen. We're just waiting on Leclerc, Norris, Hadjar, Stroll, and Hülkenberg to make a pit stop. Although Ocon, Doohan, and Bortoleto all pitted very, very early, so you'd imagine we'll have to pit again because doesn't look like it's playing in their favour as Fernando Alonso also moves past Jack Doohan, and Alex Albon moves back up past Nico Hülkenberg into 11th place. Piastri, 4.7 seconds to Max. So that 5-second penalty to Max Verstappen is where he's lost that gap. Is now just around 5 seconds behind Oscar Piastri. Fernando Alonso, here's that replay of the move, which got him up into 15th place. Jack Doohan just standing still in comparison to the straight line speed of the Aston Martin. Peels to the right-hand side. And here comes Charles Leclerc then into the pits. Finally, the Ferrari. Hard compound tyres go on. He did an insane stint there, Charles Leclerc. Should come out just behind George Russell in all of this. But a nice actual little gap behind Russell. Hadjar still a distance behind. And the new race leader is Lando Norris. Here comes Kimi Antonelli on Isaac Hadjar. Talking of Hadjar behind Leclerc, it's now Antonelli behind Leclerc. Antonelli 9 seconds, though, adrift of Charles. And Antonelli is done well, don't get me wrong, but you can tell just hasn't quite got the experience on the tyres as of yet. It's, Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc have made it look a lot easier, but Antonelli still getting the business done. Can still say that he's finishing ahead of the likes of Lewis Hamilton. He'll outscore Yuki Tsunoda because Tsunoda's out of the race. So still a lot of positives to take from Kimi Antonelli in this one. A lot of experience gained on these tyres, which are so tricky to get used to inside of Formula One at the moment. Lando Norris yet to pit and 3.5 seconds ahead of his teammate. 29 laps completed on those hard tyres and is going to start another one. Piastri's lap pace a 132.8. Lando Norris a 133.1 as he comes across the start-finish line. Verstappen also quicker than Piastri that time around, a 132.8 from Verstappen. Lando Norris pits. He still comes out behind Charles Leclerc in all of this, but is going to be on the medium tyre. So that will play into Lando Norris's favour as the race starts to play out. So Lando Norris going very long indeed. Here comes Carlos Sainz on Lance Stroll. Looking at the point scoring places, just to give you a rundown as we head into the possibility of Lando Norris pitting and Lance Stroll also coming towards the end of that first stint, surely, as Carlos Sainz starts to move past the Aston Martin and moves back up to 9th place. It is Norris leading, Piastri 2nd, Max Verstappen 3rd. George Russell is still in 4th place, but still effectively running 3rd. Here we go, though. Ollie Behrman is going to make a move on Jack Doohan. Going right into turn 1, side by side. Really lovely move and fight through turn 2. Doohan doesn't want to give it up, but Behrman just about gets it done. Spot on from Oliver Behrman. Jack Doohan has to give up that place and drop down to 17th. But just run back through again. As I say, George Russell running 4th now, but still effectively 3rd as Norris yet to have pitted. Charles Leclerc also still ahead of Lando Norris technically when Lando Norris pits and loses 20 seconds. Norris will come out in 5th spot. Kimi Antonelli running in 6th. Isaac Hadjar in 7th, yet to have pitted also. Add 20 seconds to his time, and he comes out around about Alex Albon at this point. So Hadjar versus Albon is going to be a battle towards the end of this race. Hamilton running in 8th place. Carlos Sainz running in 9th is 12 seconds adrift of Lewis Hamilton, just showing that gap between those top teams and the bottom teams once again. Lance Stroll in 10th, but also yet to have pitted. And as I say that, Alex Albon is going to make a move on Lance Stroll and get that move done. Albon moves up into the point scoring places once again. It's looking like a very comfortable double points finish for Williams is on the cards. Both of the Williams cars running very quick here in Saudi Arabia compared to the rest of the midfield. Isaac Hadjar, the only driver that has been able to live with either of them. Let's see, Isaac Hadjar is 31.7, so add 20 seconds to that, 51. Yeah, Albon now ahead of Hadjar just about, but maybe Hadjar on the fresh medium tyres at the end will be able to battle with the Williamses. It's going to be RB versus Williams for that best of the rest slot behind the top 4 teams. Norris and Piastri still at the front at the moment. Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc, Antonelli, Hamilton in our top running teams. George Russell and Leclerc, though, is starting to become a little bit of a battle. Charles Leclerc closing in, and actually Charles Leclerc, quickest lap of anybody. A 132.4 from Charles Leclerc in 5th place. 2.5 seconds the gap to Russell in front. And that is for a podium place at this moment in time. Charles Leclerc could be about to nab that final spot on the podium from George Russell. If he keeps putting in laps like that, he was 4/10 quicker than George Russell before. Somebody crashed, so it's a red flag, and then Norris gets first. That does feel like it's the only way he's going to get first, because Piastri is slowly been closing in. Piastri has just been chunking away 2/10, 3/10 every lap, not doing anything too crazy. Knows that he doesn't need to get right up behind his teammate as of yet. Knows that Lando Norris will have to pit at some point. And Gabriel Bortoleto is actually making a little move on Jack Doohan. I think gets past Jack Doohan. Oh no, sorry. Jack Doohan has come into the pits. So Jack Doohan with a second pit stop. Lando's plan is to keep extending, told on the radio. So Piastri just needs to continue on and do what he's doing. Lando Norris trying to go as long as possible and hope that something falls his way. As we just said, if there is a safety car or a red flag or any kind of intrusion on the race, we will see Lando Norris benefit from it. That's why Isaac Hadjar is also continuing on. Losing time now to possibly gain time because of that. Norris is struggling with his confidence. I don't think that right now. He's just doing what he needs to do. I think he knew that 5th place would be a pretty solid finish, given starting from 10th place and having a lot of quick cars in front of him. Lando Norris gone very long indeed on this stint. Still doing pretty decent lap times nonetheless. A 33 dead from Lando Norris. Okay, it's not anywhere near the lap times of Piastri and Verstappen, but Russell is not too much quicker than that, to be honest. Charles Leclerc, though, much quicker indeed. Charles Leclerc now within 2 seconds of George Russell ahead, and that's going to become a real battle as Russell and Leclerc tussle for that final podium place. Fernando Alonso now under pressure. Oh, and here we go then. Lando Norris surely is going to come in. The McLaren team making their way out into the pits. A box call from Lando Norris, and he does peel into the pit lane. So Oscar Piastri, after being ahead of Max Verstappen for all of about a second at the beginning of the race, is now actually going to lead the Grand Prix for the first time. Oscar Piastri moves up into top spot. Verstappen in second. Russell then retakes third. And Norris should come out behind Charles Leclerc, all being well. It's just that gap to Charles Leclerc is going to be interesting to see. Lando Norris, little replay of his pit entrance. What happened here? Ooh, did he cut the corner? He's right on it. Ooh. Did he go over the line there, Lando Norris, as he was coming into the pits? Is it another minor error from Lando Norris? That would be agonizing if it was. Isaac Hadjar has also come into the pits now. So we do get a proper look at our top 10 and where they should actually be for the first time, as everybody has now done their first pit stop. Oh no, sorry, Lance Stroll is continuing on in 11th spot at the moment, still yet to have pitted. But everybody in the top 10, I should say, has now gone. Thank you for all the new subs. Oh yeah, loads of new subs coming in there. Thank you, Sally, for welcoming them. Thank you, all of you, for subbing to the channel. If you could leave a like, that would be absolutely amazing as we head into the second stint of this race for some of those hard compound tyre starters. We're going to see now whether Isaac Hadjar can get up towards the Williams cars. He's got a 2.5 second gap to make up to Alex Albon ahead of him, but he's on the medium tyres, so we'll see how that plays out. Lando Norris now also 17 seconds off the lead, but 5.7 seconds behind Leclerc. Leclerc and Russell, though, are looking like they might cause each other a little bit of a headache, which might just open the door for Lando Norris to also get in the mix for a podium place here. So Russell, Leclerc and Norris all in contention for that final podium place, it feels like. Piastri, though, 4.5 seconds ahead of Verstappen. Feels like that's done and dusted after that 5-second penalty for Max has put him so far adrift of the race leader. Piastri, we saw last time around in Bahrain, coast to a comfortable victory. Feels like he's going to have that in his locker once again, is Oscar. Just going to nurse those hard compound tyres to the end. So the real battles here, whether or not George Russell can tussle with Leclerc, whether or not Norris can close that gap, and if Isaac Hadjar can move past the Williams cars and be considered the best of the rest driver here in Saudi Arabia. Williams looking like a double point scoring finish is on the cards. Interesting as well that Williams have decided already, they've kind of been the first team to make the jump and decide, you know what, we're actually going to go for 2026 regulation solidarity. They are completely working on the 2026 car now at Williams. They've used all their wind tunnel time and are using that wind tunnel time for their 2026 build. So Williams will not get any quicker than this, it feels like, throughout the season, or it would be marginal. But they are best of the rest at the moment, so why would they need to work on this year's car if they're going to finish 5th in the constructor standings with the car that they've already got? That is the way it plays out. Liam Lawson is also on a little bit of a mission behind Lance Stroll at the moment, caught up to the back of the Aston Martin. Of course, the Aston Martin car yet to have pitted, so Liam Lawson also agonizingly close to the point scoring places. Is going to make the move on Stroll, though, and will get ahead of him. Yes, Lawson gets up into 11th place, and that's just frustrating for Liam Lawson, isn't it? Because he should really be ahead of his teammate. Started the race ahead of his teammate, and Lawson, after a frustrating first 4 races, is going to be annoyingly 1 place off the points. Stroll and Alonso in the Aston Martins behind. Ocon and Behrman in 14th and 15th. And it is very much a 2x2 race behind our top 7, isn't it? 2 Williamses, 2 RBs, 2 Astons, 2 Hasses, and 2 Stake Saubers, with Jack Doohan at the back of the pack. Here comes Charles Leclerc, though. And can Charles Leclerc get ahead of George Russell? Yes. Charles Leclerc, stunning move down towards turn 1, peels off to the right-hand side of the track. George Russell tries to cover the inside, but the Ferrari just, well, we saw it with Lewis Hamilton when he was battling with Norris. The Ferrari does seem to have a really good straight line speed, especially when that DRS is open. And now Charles Leclerc running in third spot and will be setting off. Can he catch Max Verstappen? He's 0.7 of a second quicker than Verstappen on the last lap. And Charles Leclerc says, thank you for the gratitude. His race engineer congratulating him on the move up into the podium places. And there is Pierre Gasly, involved in a tangle with Yuki Tsunoda when points were definitely on the cards for Gasly. Would have been interesting to see where Tsunoda and Gasly would have played out in all of this. Would they have been with the Williamses in 8th and 9th place? Where would Gasly have slotted into that point scoring places? Or would he, as Jack Doohan has, fallen all the way to the back of the pack? Lando Norris with a 132.1, and George Russell is looking like he might go. Oh, Liam Lawson has just been smacked with a penalty. Let's have a little look at what that was. I think it was a 10-second penalty, but I didn't see what for. Liam Lawson, a 10-second penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Naughty, naughty Lawson. Where would that put him? So he is, yeah, that would put him a considerable few positions back. Lawson would go from 11th all the way down to 15th with that 10-second penalty at the moment. Obviously, there's still a few laps to play out, and that 10-second gap, he might be able to eke out ahead of a few of those cars, but Lawson is going to fall back fairly substantially. And Piastri saying that there's a red flashing light on a balcony into turn 10. And it's starting to frustrate him. He thinks it's a red light that might be indicating a red flag, but no red flag at the moment, as we see Fernando Alonso being let through by Lance Stroll and the Aston Martins swapping places. That means Fernando Alonso is effectively running in 11th place because Lawson has that 10-second penalty. But no points for Fernando Alonso once again if he finishes there in 11th. Keep an eye out, though, because he might be able to get into the points. Liam Lawson dropping that 10-second penalty. His teammate, though, Isaac Hadjar, is now within a second of Alex Albon. And Carlos Sainz saying, look, we've got plenty of pace to pull away. Carlos Sainz, though, at the moment, giving Alex Albon DRS to try and hold off Isaac Hadjar. And this is the thing now. Can Albon stay ahead of Hadjar? Can Albon keep with his teammate to keep inside the DRS range? Have to wait and see. Is it better that we get the pair of you to work together, or is it better to make sure that we have one car definitely get the points that it deserves? Oh, and Norris has been noted for that incident entering the pit lane, as Lando Norris is now within a second of George Russell, and it's going to go from bad to worse as George Russell drops from 3rd to 4th as Charles Leclerc was able to move past him. Ocon being told to swap positions with Behrman. So Behrman now goes up into 13th place. Someone tell me why Max lost the lead. He had a 5-second penalty at the beginning of the Grand Prix. So dropped down into second by about that 5 seconds. Lando Norris, though, DRS open. Is he going to learn that actually turn 27 isn't the place to make maneuvers this time around? He learned that when he overtook Lewis Hamilton in turn 27 twice, and then Hamilton came back at him, but he's going to do it down towards turn 1 instead, and Lando Norris with the DRS open is going to get past George Russell comfortably and run through turn 2 ahead of George Russell. Russell now down into 5th place, Lando Norris up into 4th, And 4 seconds the gap to Charles Leclerc ahead. But Charles Leclerc is still rattling around at a pretty solid speed. 132.3 last time around for Leclerc. The Haas team did indeed swap positions. Just seeing a replay of that. Behrman now up into 13th place. And on much fresher hard compound tyres, even though they are 21 laps old, believe it or not. 10 laps left to play out in this one. What's the incident Norris is under investigation for? He cut the corner on the entrance to the pit lane. And it was very, very tight as to whether he was over the line or not. So Norris might get a little penalty for that. I don't think it will make that much of a difference, unless it's like a 10-second penalty. If it's a 5-second penalty, I don't think it will cost Norris in the long run, because I do think he'll be over 5 seconds ahead of George Russell in this. So, not sure how that will play out. Behrman is kind of cooking Ocon. They're just on very different strategies. I think the early pit under the safety car was not the play. And those drivers that did do that, so you're looking like Ocon, Bortoleto, Doohan, like they just pitted way too early. I know that, you pit under the safety car, you catch up to the back of the pack and you try and go really long. Just has not worked. Has not worked at all. Like those hard compound tires have fallen off a cliff. And yeah, Jack Doohan getting lapped. Ocon now behind his teammate and being asked to move out of the way. Bortoleto, I'm sure, will also soon be asked to move out of the way of Nico Hülkenberg as well. So those guys just being done by the strategy, unfortunately, more than anything else. Piastri, though, leading the race. Verstappen has closed the gap a touch over the last few laps, but Verstappen not anywhere close enough to really cause Piastri a problem, you would imagine, in the last 9 laps. Leclerc is continuing on, although Lando Norris has just found 0.5 of a second on Charles Leclerc, so that final podium position could certainly be up for grabs if Lando Norris gets this right. Oh, it was the pit exit for Lando Norris. Is that under investigation instead? I thought it was the pit entry. Is it the inside line? Failing to follow the race director's instructions. Following the line, crossing the line at the pit exit. So Lando Norris now, the steward's looking at his pit exit. That seems like a weird one. I thought it was the pit entrance that he got wrong. But it's the pit exit that they're looking at for Lando Norris. I'll keep you updated with that. It's under investigation by the stewards right now. Piastri still leading from Verstappen. Leclerc podium would be very, very good, considering Ferrari did look like the 4th fastest package by a considerable margin when it came to qualifying yesterday. But George Russell just hasn't quite had the pace on these hard compound tyres, and Leclerc going super long on that first stint has played into his favour. Much better, much fresher hard compound tyres. Now I think Leclerc will be a little bit frustrated that he didn't start on the hards, If Leclerc started on the hards and he was on a set of medium tyres right now, he'd be in a much better position to defend from Lando Norris. But Norris, 3.3 seconds. Keep an eye on that. Gained 0.3 of a second last lap. It's going to be very, very close indeed. If Norris is able to catch Leclerc, it's looking like it's going to be almost the final lap of the Grand Prix in which he does it. George Russell then running around in 5th place, a big gap to Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli, you've got to give him his praise. He's done very well indeed. Is starting to be reeled in by Hamilton, though, and I think it's just those hard compound tyres are going to start to really ache on Antonelli's car. He just doesn't have the... no further investigation on Lando Norris failing to follow the race director's instructions. Kimi Antonelli just doesn't have the experience that these hard compound tires sometimes need. I remember Oscar Piastri in his first season in Hungary having the same kind of problem, showed a lot of pace, showed a lot of promise, but then you just looked at Lando Norris's pace compared to Piastri as the lap times and as the laps continued to fall, and it just started to drift away from Piastri. I think we're seeing that same kind of thing from Antonelli here, and it happens to very, very good drivers. You just don't have that experience on the tyres yet, and Hamilton might be able to nab that 6th place. Keep an eye on that one, as he was 0.8 of a second quicker than Antonelli, considering their last laps that they completed. 2 seconds, the gap between the two of them at the moment. Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon still trying to play this Williams DRS game and playing it very well. Isaac Hadjar has caught up to the back of Alex Albon, but hasn't been able to get past either of the Williams cars yet. Should be able to, is on the medium tyre. A much fresher medium tyre as well. Hadjar played that long stint perfectly on the RB, but just isn't quite there yet, Isaac Hadjar. And with no DRS advantage to the Williams in front, because they're playing that team game ahead of him. You know, Albon inside of the DRS range of Carlos Sainz. If he keeps in there, then that DRS advantage is nullified. Therefore, we start to see Hadjar getting a little bit frustrated. It'll be interesting to see how he plays this, the Frenchman. Liam Lawson running 11th, but with a 10-second penalty. We are 6 laps from the end of the race. If you could hit the like button, that'd be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. We are starting to get towards that 130,000 subscriber mark. And if you fancy becoming a member, there will also be a members-only post-race show where we'll discuss all the ins and outs of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and go through everything that happened, just to recap who finished where and what's going on post-Saudi Arabia. Of course, no race next week, but in 2 weeks' time, we'll be live on the channel once again for the Miami Grand Prix. So subscribe so that you don't miss it. Oscar Piastri leading the race and now leading the Drivers' Championship too. Max Verstappen second, Charles Leclerc still on the podium, but Lando Norris now within 2 seconds, and that gap slowly coming down. Lando Norris continuing to take chunks out of Leclerc. In fact, it was nearly a second out of Leclerc last lap. As I say, though, only 5 laps left. Not very long for Lando Norris to maybe sneak up behind the Ferrari. And Oscar Piastri starting to get frustrated by the back markers. It's Lance Stroll and Gabriel Bortoleto that are getting in the way of Piastri at this point, allowing Verstappen actually to close the gap pretty substantially. But we're now starting to see, once Piastri does get past, Verstappen will also have the problem that he's going to have as well. Then Lando Norris closing up to the back of Leclerc, and there's no traffic between those two. They've just gotten rid of Jack Doohan. Lando Norris, 1.8 seconds the gap. Russell and Antonelli just cruising to a finish inside the Mercedes cars. Hamilton looking to try and get past Antonelli. Hasn't been as quick in the last couple of laps, though, as Lewis Hamilton. Still 2 seconds the gap. Antonelli maybe just stepping up a touch. And Sainz and Albon still playing the DRS game in front of Isaac Hadjar. So Hadjar might have to settle for a 10th place finish. Fernando Alonso would be agonizingly close, but finish in 11th spot, as Liam Lawson does have a 10-second penalty. He is 8.5 seconds off the back of Liam Lawson at the moment, Fernando Alonso. So Lawson might actually be able to keep that 11th place if he can gain another second or so to the Spaniard. Will still finish ahead of Ollie Behrman in 13th. Ocon's running 14th, Hulkenberg 15th. Lance Stroll has finally pitted and has come out in 16th place. Gabriel Bortoleto 17th, and Jack Doohan running around at the back of the pack. Of course, Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly dropped out of the Grand Prix at the start of the Grand Prix. Literally made it to turn 1 before the two of them collided and took each other out of this weekend's action. Here's a replay of Lance Stroll. And Lance Stroll actually was battling with Oscar Piastri. And I see Lance Stroll then took advantage of the fact that Gabriel Bortoleto moved out of the way of Piastri and also took that position as well. So Lance Stroll being opportunistic there as Piastri was trying to make his way through the back markers. Piastri now ahead of Stroll. And Stroll needs to move out of the way of Verstappen also. Couple attempts faster in the first sector, though, is Charles Leclerc. So Leclerc maybe realizing that he needs to step it up. Lando Norris still 1.8 seconds adrift. So Charles Leclerc doing what he needs to do. Lando Norris not closing the gap enough with 3 laps left to go. If Lando Norris was going to get onto the podium, I think he'd have to be a bit closer than he is now, sort of nearing the DRS range, because he needs to make up a lot of time in this lap, does Lando Norris. Let's see what he's got. It's going to have to be a qualifying lap from Lando. He needs to get himself within the DRS, it feels like, this lap to then have a lunge on the final lap of the race. George Russell on the radio. Front left is not looking good at all. And he's a little bit concerned, is George Russell, that he might end up with a puncture. Band on the inside of the tyre, not looking very strong at all. Russell has fallen 14 seconds away from the top 4 when he was looking in contention for a podium place. It's just absolutely fallen away from him, George Russell. Kimi Antonelli in 6th place behind has been able to keep Lewis Hamilton at bay. That does feel like that battle isn't going to play out after all, even though Hamilton was gaining on Antonelli pretty substantially. Started to drift away from him once again. So Antonelli doing a proper stellar job in 6th place there. No tyre concerns at the moment, George Russell is told over the radio. And Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon doing a perfect little duo job in front of Isaac Hadjar. That's got to be so frustrating for Isaac Hadjar. If it wasn't 2 teammates in front of him, he might be running in 8th place now. But because Albon and Sainz can play that team game, and because Albon and Sainz can run within DRS range of one another and just make sure that they keep that position over Hadjar, it's meant that Hadjar has had no opening at all, even on the medium compound tyre. So Isaac Hadjar is going to come away with a point nonetheless, and he'll be happy about that point, but I think he'll be slightly frustrated that he didn't get to have a run at finishing best of the rest this time around, although Williams fans be very happy indeed as they'll go back up into 5th place in the constructor standings with their first double points finish. Oh no, did they get a double points finish when Carlos Sainz got his point? Possibly. I forgot that Carlos Sainz inherited a 10th place finish when the Ferraris and Gasly were disqualified in China. Piastri then on the penultimate lap of the race is just coming around towards turn 27 to start the final lap of this Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Lando Norris is still not within DRS range of Charles Leclerc. So it's going to be all on the last lap, and it's going to have to be a move down maybe towards turn 27 for Lando Norris and a dart to the line, because he's not going to have DRS down towards turn 1. Piastri and Verstappen start their final lap ahead of Leclerc and Norris. George Russell, a good chunk of time down the road, unfortunately, for the Mercedes fans out there. Antonelli also another 8 seconds adrift of his teammate. The only possible position change, though, is this one. Lando Norris chasing down Charles Leclerc. It just doesn't feel like he's done enough, Lando Norris, in the last few laps, and Charles Leclerc has been able to keep him at bay. They matched one another for lap times last time around, and Norris is going to have to settle for 4th. Charles Leclerc is going to finish on the podium for Ferrari in a weekend that he started very frustrated. He thought he got everything out of that Ferrari car in qualifying. Did a stellar job in the first stint, did Charles Leclerc, to go very long on those medium tyres. And now Lando Norris is going to have to settle behind him Piastri, though, gliding through the first two sectors, is now coming around turn 26. It's going to be Piastri to take another victory in 2025. 3 victories in the first 5 races. And the Australian is going to lead the Drivers' Championship, the first Australian to do so since Mark Webber. He comes across the line, takes the victory, and Piastri does the business. Max Verstappen finishes 2.5 seconds adrift. Charles Leclerc does indeed manage to get that podium place for Ferrari. Lando Norris has to settle for the 4th best slot. We have Hulkenberg, Stroll and Doohan also taking the checkered flag, with Bortoletto being lapped behind. George Russell then takes the checkered flag in 5th place. Kimi Antonelli looks like he's going to come across the line in 6th. Does indeed. Lewis Hamilton crosses the line in 7th place just behind. Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon and Isaac Hadjar still battling it out. Liam Lawson just behind as well. Is Hadjar going to go for a final lap maneuver? Carlos Sainz has actually moved away from his teammate. Here goes Isaac Hadjar into turn 27. Does he have a little look at the Williams? Can't this time around, unfortunately. And Williams are going to take 8th and 9th place. Sainz and Albon, a double points finish for the Williams team, puts them 5th in the constructor standings. Isaac Hadjar has to settle for 10th place and a singular point. Fernando Alonso gets promoted up into 11th place after Liam Lawson has that 10-second penalty. Behrman and Ocon also come across the line, and Ocon is going to be the final driver to take the checkered flag, having not been lapped by the rest of the pack. He's just coming around turn 27. Thank you guys so much for watching. It was an interesting one, wasn't it? That 5-second penalty for Verstappen definitely took away from the battle for the lead. Charles Leclerc's incredible decision to go long in that first stint really put him in the driving seat and managed to snag him a 3rd place finish. Lando Norris from 10th to 4th, not too bad at all. George Russell finished 5th, Antonelli 6th for the Mercedes duo. Then 7th place for Lewis Hamilton inside of that top 14 bracket. Yuki Tsunoda missing, of course, after dropping out at the beginning of the Grand Prix. Both of the Williamses in the points in 8th and 9th place, and Hadjar rounding out the points scoring places. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave, like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I am going to go live in a couple of minutes for members only. So keep your eyes peeled. If you're not a member, become a member. Join us for the post-race show where we'll chat all of the different bits and pieces in terms of the championship, what this means moving forward into Miami, and of course get to see the drivers lifting the trophy and looking at what this means for Lando Norris in the battle for the championship. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you all stopping by, and I will see you guys in a moment.